FEDUP.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Talking Station's The Midweek Show. With me today is Edmund again. Welcome back, Edmund.
Hello.
And also our guest today, Contra Ben Venning, RCO from FEDUP. How's it going, Contra?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
And hopefully a little bit later, running a little bit late, is Sedao from Recking crew. Very much interested in catching up with him and what's going on with his group. But while we got you here, Contra, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from in EVE, how long you've been playing?
Let's see. Probably 6 or 7 years now. Tried the game 2 or 3 times before it stuck. I guess EVE was just one of those games that is very hard to kind of get into the first couple of times. So I made an account and tried to play a few times and kind of I don't know if it's underwhelmed or overwhelmed or both. Just didn't seem like there was much to do. So I quit. And the third time I read a lot about it and decided I figured out where I wanted to go in the game before I started playing it and joined up with Faction Warfare pretty much right away. Did that for years and years and years. I initially started on the Caldari side, actually, and fought with them for a couple of months in a kind of obscure group called Mercs of Vengeance. They were kind of different. They made you do training and went to low sec without going to these classes, and then they yelled and screamed at me for losing too many ships. So I left and switched over to the Galmil side, where I spent most of my EVE career. Finally got into the alliance building section of the game and kind of got big and graduated from Faction Warfare low sec and moved on to doing the whole null sec empire building thing, which is where we are today. FEDUP is a proud member of living in the Immensia region, and that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah, it's sort of like the classic sort of EVE progression, right? You got a new bro that comes out of the ether, joins a new bro group, and they try to like train him real hard, and then you kind of didn't like that, and so you found your own freedom somewhere else, and it was low sec for a while, and then you started your own corp, and that corp grew into an alliance, and then moved to null sec. That's sort of like the dream EVE progression, isn't it?
It kind of is, and I kind of fell into a lot of it along the way. So the Calmill group that I was part of had a lot of nice guys in it, but the way that they did things was real different than anything I experienced up to or even kind of heard about in EVE since then. Like I said, they had these very, very strict training classes, and you had to show up for 3 or 4 of them. I remember the first day I joined the Corp, I went straight down to high sec and went right into low sec with the ship, where I promptly got blown up, which I think is the natural kind of thing to do in the game, and immediately got yelled at and told, get out of low sec immediately, go back to high sec. You're not the approved rank to be able to fly in low sec. So kind of a real weird group. One of the guys that flew there left and basically told me, hey, I know this group that's on the enemy side, and there's a couple of real good solo PvP pilots in there, and they would probably take you on, and you would enjoy flying with them. They're not going to care about how many ships you lose. And those guys were really incredible. I learned a lot from them. Shout outs to Zoe Fishpants and Killer Trout, which is kind of a weird name that some people might not remember, but man was a god with Artie Thrashers back in the day. And then eventually, just like every small kind of obscure corp, it kind of people dissolved and quit playing, and then I just kind of had a CEO role fall on my lap because nobody else was there or wanted to do it, and that's I kind of inherited my corp.
Yeah, I remember that story. I remember I was part of Mecha Enterprises X Meta when that happened, and then you like picked a few people to be directors, and it was sort of a fresh start. It's funny. I think most leaders, and Sedao has just joined us. How Sedao, you doing?
Good, man. Just kill the hell. Good days.
Awesome. We're just talking to Contra about himself and the formation of FEDUP and a little bit of history. But set out to you, and we'll get to your story here too. But I wanted to get your opinion. You feel like a lot of times people who wind up in leadership roles have the ambition to be there and they're putting themselves up front, but a lot of times that kind of stuff just falls in place. Like Contra was an active FC in his corporation, and then when his CEO left, he sort of just like passed the reins to the next active guy. Is that sort of how you move up the ladder in Eve sometimes?
Sometimes. So think of it this way, like, let me backtrack. So when I joined Test, I started off as a measly little support FC, is all I was. That's all I did. Test was like the first or second big alliance I'd ever joined, and I'd moved out of Darkness. And Darkness, I was an FC who, because during the MTO Keepstar fight, the Super FC got DC'd, and so I ended up calling targets for the Supers in that fight, and that's how I sort of got introduced to FC. Come down to Test, I become a support FC, and then I'm just doing a bunch of fun stuff, keep saying I want to get involved, and then the invasion of Providence happens right around the faction Fortizar station flip time thing, and I just start leading Toasted Suites because no one else would step up to do it, and I wanted to move up the ladder. I was like, you know what, I want to be a Skirm FC, I want to be a Strat FC, so I can take out these bigger fleets and learn how to fight on big grids, learn how to win 1,000-man fights, etc. So did me and Steel Dragon no longer plays as far as I know, but me, him, and Farm Stink all were like the three main FCs who grinded out Providence. God, that was cancer. But it moved me up the ranks, and that's what I wanted to do at the time. So I got up to Skirmish, and then I just took as many fights as I could. I started whaling, started doing Goku fleets, building connections, meeting people, and then Iron Wolf left to do his own thing. I forgot what they left for. He left, so that left a hole in the U.S. time zone Strat-Up FC thing, and then right around, no one really filled it. And then 4 or 5 months later, the frat war started, and then that's when I had my chance to step up and like become a part of it. And with all the connections I had made with people and the conversations I had, it leads to itself. If you have the ambition to want to do something, to want to learn something, it's going to take time. But within 2 years, I was at a point where I was leading Legacy in a campaign against fucking Fraternity because I had the ambition and I wanted to, and I put a shit ton of effort into it. And in the end, it burned me out. But I look back at it, and it was one of the best times I had. So,
yeah, for sure.
But if you have the ambition, like, it just falls on it. And today, like, to your original point, I sort of sidetracked, but to your original point, like, it does sort of just fall in place. Like, I went out and made my own corp now, and most of the stuff I do is FCing. I have 2 guys who help me with like all the actual like director stuff that needs doing, but like besides that, it's just I keep the corp active, I keep them doing things, and the corp grows from it. As long as everyone's having fun and content, like as long as I can provide content, the corp grows, and then the more people I get, the more stuff I can do. Like, the whole point of me doing this corp, especially after the Fraternity War, was I want to focus on fun per hour, and that's it. And if I can provide people with fun, then everything else will fall in place, and that's usually what ends up happening. Like, I ended up making this corp, and people followed because I just wanted to have fun. So I guess I think your point is right. If you have the ambition and you're just active, most of the time leadership stuff just falls on you.
Yeah, for sure. So contrary to so that I think that mirrors a little bit about how you've been moving up the ranks a little bit. You moved FedUp out of faction warfare, low sec. Maybe not all voluntarily, but how did that go now, and how does you see yourself? Because FedUp keeps moving up the chain a little bit, and is it an increment of like Seto was saying, like you do one thing and then they like it, you do a next thing, that kind of progression?
Yeah. We've kind of as a group progressed basically from the bottom till close to the top. Every step of the way. We're a little different, and then Seto's experience, because we I didn't join a big alliance first, so we basically started with 4 or 5 guys running frigates, and just kind of have slowly graduated up over time into the next thing. I'll still never forget, the first time we brought in a batch of regular cruisers and not wanting to FC that, even though I would FC'd hundreds of fleets at that point, just because they were cruisers and not frigates, and I didn't want to lose the ISK. So you kind of just keep growing and you go up the ladder, and eventually you kind of get numb to that fear of losing a few ships and just have fun with it.
I remember the first, what was it? I think it was the first Maelstrom fleet. It was the first, on my way moving up to Skirmish FC, like the second tier level in test, like from the small little support FC to like a Skirmish FC. There was a Fortizar and Scouting Pass that and PL showed up too, and like this is like when Mutants like first got the ADC, I think. No, when did Hax get the ADC? When did Hax comes back? I guess.
That's probably about a year ago now, right?
No, it was before that. It was back when rogues were being used. It was back when rogues were being used commonly, especially in nullsec, right around the DTech G Fortizar timer, or the DTech G Athenor, where tests like dropped the super fleet for like the first time in one.
Yeah, gosh, time goes by so fast in Eve. You're right.
Yeah, so so right around that time, I took a rogue fleet to defend a Fortizar, a third-party Fortizar, and they were using Munins or Ishtars or something, and that was what it was. Yeah, I was using rogues. That's how I moved up, because I didn't want to fly the rogues, but I was told, hey, if you want to move up the ladder, like if you want to do this, you have to be able to do this and be confident. I was thrust into flying battleships, and most of the time I only flew like FC cruisers, and I was like shitting my pants. I was talking to Farm Stink about like resistances and like what ammo type to use and how to call target, like making sure I was going to do the right stuff. I did all the numbers. Like it was a grind, and it was scary as shit. But once you get in there and get confident at it, like it's like riding a bike.
Yeah, I think most FCs experience that sort of thing. So you guys talk to me a little bit about FEDUP and Recking Crew. So we did a little bit of history on FEDUP, but what about you, Sadal? We got into it a little bit with you, but you transitioned from test coming off a major war. You pretty much sky marshaled the last half of that war. It was a lot of effort. You kind of said it burned you out. You kind of took a break and then came back. Talk to me about the transition into Recking Crew a little more, and like what that group's all about, where you live and what you do.
So I guess we'll start from the beginning. End of frat war, things had cooled off. I think right around summer. When was the end of the frat? No, it was like November, 3-4 months ago. November, coming up on Christmas, and I was just done. Like I was staying up to 4 a.m. to FC fleets, waking up at 6 a.m., staying up all day, like. And no, I'd sleep like midday because I was at school, and so it didn't really matter for my sleep schedule. But like I'd sleep midday, I'd go out, hang out with my buddies at night, come back because nothing would really happen in U.S. time zone once ELO burned out, and then FC fleets into China time zone, and then early AU. And I was just burned. I just needed a break, and so I took a break. So I was having a lot of fun with DKS. That's the one thing that really kept me in. But with some there was just some creative differences in the way we wanted to hit. Me and Southside wanted to take the SIG, and so I was like, you know what, I just need a break. I think I need to just focus on smaller stuff and take a step back and focus on knocking some stuff off on my to-do list in Eve, and one of those is to create a corp. And so I took the alt corp I had in test for like campaign reasons, and poked around, tried to figure out where I wanted to go, and I decided on Recking Crew. Recking Crew is a group of alliances: HTP, FEW, TRC, COG, a bunch of ragtag, like low-sec guys who base in Derelict, Domain. What's that other region? Right there.
Yeah, sort of the borderlands between like Pravi and low-sec, right?
Yeah, so Derelict, Domain, and Devoid and Tashmerkin area, like we're spread out between all those, and the one thing that brings us all together is pretty much Providence. Wrecking Crew literally like it's one of those things where they don't. It's not. How do I phrase this? I guess you can say they're at a war with Pravi, but like they use Pravi as a content mechanism. Like, Wrecking Crew doesn't want to kill off Pravi, because if we kill off Pravi, then we'd have to shoot Legacy, and then we just get dicked on for content. So screw that. But I guess it's Cold War and Pravi. Like, they have null block systems, but if we lost them, we wouldn't care as long as we get to shoot stuff. Like, that is the motto. As long as you're having fun and looking for medium-sized content, Wrecking Crew, like, usually that's the strive and that's the goal. They stemmed from PL branch of Super Hunters who stayed in Derelict, and then they broke off PL like 6 years ago, and then they've come up to what they are now. So I took the Corp and moved over there. I took about a month and a half off the game completely, just not playing. I think I logged in twice for fleet fights. Besides that, just not playing. And then a month and a half ago, 2 months, I came back. I started getting active again. And so far, I just having less blues and having more people to shoot and just having connections and knowing what's happening and what's where. Intel's huge. Intel and logistics are huge, but I just play the game for fun now. I don't have to worry about okay, if I go to sleep now, is the system going to get in Tosis that I'll have to stay up for at a different day? Like that was my constant worry in the frat war. Just it became a job, and I loved it, but it became a job that I just couldn't handle for a video game. And then that's the reason I left. I wanted to focus on having fun and knock off a few things on my to-do list, like build a corp. And it's been very successful, at least corp stuff. I do a lot of corp only stuff, and then every now and then an RC thing. But that's sort of where I am now. But Wrecking Crew as a whole is just basically at a stalemate Cold War with Pravi. Neither side wins neither. Like, we're not going to evict Pravi in a month. They're not going to kill us off in a month. They've been at war for like 4 years now, something like that. Most of the time, it's just what ends up happening is we'll undock in Loki's or something, or in Max or Gila's. They'll upship to Max. We have to upship because our staging systems are like 3 jumps apart. So we undock something, and they just go change doctrines, and we go change doctrines until we finally end up at like Max and Nightmares, and we end up having to fucking brawl it out. And then, like, if one can't hold, they leave immediately. It's a Cold War. It's a stalemate, but it's how it is.
You touched on the burnout thing with FCs. Is that something quite common? Because I've seen it a couple times now, and it seems quite severe. Like, what brings you to spend so much? Well, essentially, is a ridiculously huge amount of time. It's a huge amount of effort. Essentially, in what amounts to a video game. I mean, I can admire that, but what makes you do it? And I couldn't do it personally.
So when let's see, I moved up to Strat Commander. I was having a lot of fun doing Goku fleets with the Bushes back in the time when they were still allowed, and I was having so much fun with it. And then Frat War starts to kick up. I start doing Mutant fleets. I start facing off against Elo pretty much every night. He beat me for like the first half of the war, and then I finally figured out like how to fly mutants and how to strategically be better, and I started beating him. It was just a strive for me to want to do better, to want to push my guys, aka Legacy, to be able to overcome them. I don't, it's something mental. It's like, if you lose that fight, then it's like bugging the shit out of me. And I just put so much time into the game, and the fact that I wanted to, like, I see Elo and Doc Mutant Fleet, oh my god, I'm pinging immediately, like, let's go shit on his mutants before he entoses us. Like, that's the thing, especially when you're facing off against someone against Elo who deals with the same burnout. It's what would happen between me and him every night. He would form a fleet to go and toast something, and then I'd have to go for him and fight him. Like, the constant harassment that you have to do to break big blocks nowadays is just cancerous. Like, it is what burns out the FCs, the constant amount of harass. Like, if we didn't entosis something every night, then Legacy might still be at war. Like, it's just, you can't be like, hey, I'm dropping a keep star here, I win the war if I win this one fight. no, it's a bunch of small stuff spread out throughout like every day. Like the wailing against fraternity slowly broke their risk income. Wars and evictions and big block wars nowadays is all about harassment and like who can pester the other one more, because no one wants to fight a war if you're getting dicked on every single angle. But if you have one big fight every week, then everyone wants to keep fighting it. So
it's sort of like attrition, right?
Yeah, it's a war of attrition.
And also, yeah. Eve is a type of game that sort of rewards the amount of time you put into it. A lot of times, the more time and effort you put into Eve, the more you're going to get out of it initially. Like so,
yes.
if you that becomes a little bit of a spiral, because you put more and more and more, and you get more until you reach the top, and then you can't do anymore, and then it becomes hard to sustain that level of effort over a long time. Even though you're getting rewarded, you're getting those fights you wanted, you're winning the war, you're doing these things, but it's hard to maintain that for an extended period of time, which is why you see a lot of alliance leaders, especially sky marshals and FCs, fight a huge war and then kind of disappear for a little while so they can take that break.
I think there was like 4 or 5 months where there was at least a full month I logged into the game every night and played. I think if you looked at my Steam hours, I'd have to go back and look at my old computer, but like my old computer that I had in school was logging my Steam hours. I had like over 20,000 or something ridiculous. Like it's just, I kept wanting to do more, and I kept having to be on, because like there was a feeling that like if I wasn't on, or if I wasn't around, especially with the weight of being like a sky marshal on my head, if something was to go wrong, or if like a system was getting toasted, a super was to die, if I missed some intel because I wasn't on and it didn't get relayed properly to the rest of Legacy, like, hey, dock up, they're doing something, then it was my fault. And I was like, because I wasn't on, it was my fault. And so I felt like I always had to be online and active and doing stuff and making sure everything was running smoothly the way it needed to go to win.
Yeah.
What exactly is this Sky Marshal title? Is it just like head of the FCs, or is it more than, or less even?
So the Sky Marshal position that I was not thrust into, that I volunteered to do because I really wanted to do it. Like, I was ambitious because it was like the peak, the highest I could get in Eve. I'd been in test for like 2 years, and it was like the pinnacle FC wise of what I thought I could ever reach in terms of like big stuff. Like that's how I'll be remembered in Eve, the Sky Marshal who won the frat war. That is how I'll be remembered, and I wanted that. And so the Sky Marshal is basically the guy who dictates how the war is going to go, who's going to form up, how things are structured, like where we're going to drop structures, what we're going to do. Pretty much he manages the whole war and manages every FC underneath him and tells him what to do. In terms of Legacy, it also meant like telling a lot of the Immensi alliances, hey, Elo's forming, get safe, or hey, if you're out mining, or hey, if you get a system in Tosis alert, let me know so we can come help you. A lot of managing, a lot of moving pieces around, and a lot of strategy and thinking that Vili taught me, and that I'll ever be grateful for, because it made me look at the game a different way. Vili is like the best teacher I think I could have ever asked for, because he guided me and taught me along the way and made me approach and view the game that not many people approach and view it from, and made me realize like if you approach it a certain way and look at things differently, you can win, and you can win a war and win a fight that way. Like that's how we won a war in an off time zone. Like just sit there and look at the game strategically versus, okay, if I win this fight, we're going to win the war. No, it's a strategy game. It's like a chessboard. It's a lot like Civ 5 or like Stellaris, sort of.
Yeah. So you hold this, you hold the keys to the strategy, basically. And then it's interesting because a lot of Legacy groups, including FEDUP, and I want to get over to Contra here for a second, we're following you.
Sorry.
No, it's fine, because this is I wanted to talk about all this because I want to get into the relationship you have now that you've got into Recking Crew and live where you live, right? Or you're mostly fighting in Northern Pravi, which isn't far from your old homeboys, right? In Legacy. So a lot of us had fought under you in the frat war, and now you're sort of up there as like a neutral entity, that brings a lot of content close to our region, which we appreciate. So,
Dude, I get a lot of hate comments now.
I'm sure you do, but I personally don't have any beef with what you're doing. Why would we complain about a group that's growing in strength and becoming powerful? Like, listen, they get mad because you best us a lot of times, but not all the time.
So again, my new approach after leaving was to play the game for fun and for content, and having a lot less blues, aka not being in legacy anymore, is one way to get a lot more content. And everyone's always like, oh, you always hit us. I have no grudge, I have no vendetta against legacy. I'm not looking to evict them, I'm not looking to kill them off, because I have a lot of friends in legacy who enjoy what they're doing. Good for them. But it doesn't mean I can't shoot them. And a lot of the time what's happening is someone will invite me, hey, we have these orcs in Amencia, do you want to come shoot them with us? I'm like, sure, no problem. Or
who's rocks in Amencia?
Yeah, good question. But there's something like that, and Legacy does. I don't really, even though I have a lot of friends in Legacy, I don't think anyone wails or does stuff like that anymore, except for Gwendolyn, who I did team up with to go kill some Bastion Rorks, but they got docked up safely. I'll team up with whoever as long as I get content. I don't really care. The whole basis of my corp and my new approach to the game is if I'm shooting something and winning the fight and being the better FC and flying good, fun doctrines that aren't Feroxes or Munins, actually sort of quote unquote elite doctrines where it takes more than just F1, it takes good corp members and fleet members to fly them successfully. That's what I want to do. I want to move up to the next quote unquote elite level of playing the game. I want everyone multi-boxing, all the stuff you hear about skill you and stuff, and everyone's gonna fucking meme me for saying, oh, Santa wants to be elite, whatever. No, whatever, go ahead and meme me, I don't care. I think it'd be fun to do, and it has been fun to do so far, and it makes me satisfied to be able to be hey, yeah, I was multi-boxing 3 tunes that fleet, and I totally fucking shit on you. So, whatever.
Yeah, so I think PvP oriented groups, and I consider Recking Crew one of those PvP oriented groups. You don't build empires, you don't have a ton of Sov. The Sov you do have is there for please come attack me, Snuff and other groups, but you don't have the same sort of edge that a Snuff has. You don't come in and shit up local and or post Reddit posts and harass people. At least I don't feel it. And maybe you do it to other people, but you don't us. But
maybe Valk, because Valk told me I had a small penis.
Oh, so, well, that's not nice. But it's still interesting for groups like FEDUP, because you also have Templars in Recking Crew, right? And Contra spent the better part of his career fighting Templars, and Spartan. So, we had this love-hate relationship with Recking Crew for a while until you got there. We'd kind of work with you for a little bit, and then we had to go back and fight you. So Contra, how's that dynamic been? Because FedUp's been in and out, fighting with Recking Crew, then against Recking Crew. How's that all been going?
It's been kind of quiet for the last 2 or 3 weeks, but it is true. We were fighting Spartan for years and years and years, and when you spend that much time fighting one person, which is kind of an interesting dynamic and different than in a lot of places, because it's unlike Null, which we have kind of moved into in the last couple of years. Your enemies don't change. So when we were back in the faction warfare days, it's like being in the frat war, but for 6 years straight against the same guy on the other side. So when you're fighting them, it's kind of Gur, that guy, and Spartan was kind of the head, and maybe not the actual leader of Calmill, but at least the most prominent FC of the group and led most of their fights. So once we dropped Galmill and we kind of separated from that, it was real easy to shift into being friendly with him, because at least I feel like when you spend that much time fighting with somebody over that long of a period of time, you know a lot about them. I mean, you know how they fight and how they FC, with spies, and how their alliances work and how their corps work. So it was
a really weird dynamic.
It is, and
it's
so it was
to me with Norris. Me and Norris are good buddies now, and that's weird. I evicted him from his home, but he always jokes with me now every time in Discord. It is a weird thing.
Yeah, so it got to the point where, I invited Spartan out to the FEDUP meet that we host in Texas, though in September, and he came out and hung out for the weekend. And he's just a good dude. So, it was easier to start working together. Pravi is close, so FEDUP took a short deployment down to shoot at Pravi guys, and that had us working with Recking Crew a little bit, and that kind of bloomed into going to other timers with Recking Crew, kind of joining forces in the U.S. time zone, having some pretty good sizable fleets between the two of us, and then that kind of fell apart when Tickle was leaving Legacy. At least word on the street, although it hasn't materialized as such, is that Tickle was going to move into the Providence area and kind of team up with Recking Crew and shoot at Legacy. And so us being down there fighting with Recking Crew shooting Pravi, what is kind of a conflict of interest. That those guys end up shooting your buddies. It's kind of got messy. So we kind of had to extract from that, and have now been back to shooting each other. We did go down and shoot at Recking Crew for a little while and just kind of poking around and being obnoxious, and that was mostly because Sedao over here, who talks fondly of Legacy, immediately left and kind of knows all of the ins and out of the group that he's whaling and poking, which is kind of an easy, cheap thrills kind of way to do things. So he was kind of camping us and harassing us a little bit, kind of cheesy for somebody who was your buddy a couple of weeks ago. So there was
I never
there was some shitty hard feelings. Yeah, you kind of camped our mining ops for a little while. It was kind of, you knew exactly when they were. You've been in.
No, actually, that was Volta. That was hustling. That was hustling. He invited me on it. And you can man me all you want.
It was one time at least you.
Okay, one time me, yes, because I remember. Was it Nikolov? If it was the tune was Nikolov or Jackson Estra, one of those tunes. I looked on the map and saw Mencia was like red lit in the system, and I was like, I wonder who's there, because it was like you're part of space. And then I remember it was I was like, oh shit, it's Monday. Okay. And then so I moved over there and sat there, and then I don't think I ever formed. I just sat there to see what you'd do.
Yeah, I know. You want decloaked, lit, then recloaked.
Yeah, I was just fucking around with you.
But, so that kind of stuff is kind of shitty. But us in particular, maybe I like the fights, so I like when they're out and about. We've scrapped a few times. We were at the point where we were pretty close there for a while, but you got big kind of fast, so you just edged us a little bit in the numbers lately, especially when you've got
those sacks are fucking nasty, dude. Yeah, I was looking at adopting them because they're so fucking nasty. I didn't realize how good they were.
Well, shout outs to the guy. I think he's actually in Recking Crew now that we fought against over in Tribute, because it was not my sack doctrine. I didn't come up with it. I don't remember the guy's name, but he's
not in Recking Crew. He's in Brand New Bros now. The guy who we fought up north that came up with the sack doctrine. Brand New Bros? No, they're up north now in Vale. We had him on the show a couple weeks ago.
Well, anyways, we fought him in them, and we were using Gilas at the time, and we tried all sorts of different things to try and break the counter. We were fighting even number fights pretty much every time, and the utility miz just kept screwing up our shield doctrines every time. So
the only worry I have with sacks is their low DPS. Unless you run two ballistic BSUs, but then it's like you don't have as much tank as you like. You have the same tank as my Zealot then. It's just like, It is nasty.
They're a little anemic on the DPS, but I think the strength of the doctrine is it's not just its utility, but its versatility. Like it has good projection, decent speed, and all the
shoot out to 93 or something.
Yeah, with good skills, and that goes back to how good your fleet is. Do they have good missile support skills? Do they have good jam skills? And that sort of makes a big difference in the strength of the fleet. But yeah,
I will say fighting your sacks made me want to adopt them for the longest time, but I never went through it. I just stuck to the Zealots because I see you guys at the Mecca like having blasts in those sacks, and it's just like they look so fun to fly, to be honest.
Well, from next week, you're gonna have to rewrite all of those doctrines, surely.
That's a good segue. We could talk about the state of the game a little bit, and I want to get both FCs that I respect very much, which is why I wanted this show. We have upcoming changes, right, to resist mods, but I don't think T2 ships are going to be all that impacted. What do you guys think?
So the hacks in general, and maybe this is just me, but I personally think that armor doctrines like that are going to be in a better place after changes than maybe their shield counterparts. Any kind of hit on the HP means you're going to get that sig tanking is going to be a little bit extra bonus. So if you're fighting shield doctrines and you both lost the HP and yet you can still sig tank, I think that's going to kind of give you an edge. So I actually don't mind the resistance change for the hack doctrines, since we are focusing on an armor doctrine currently. I think that just makes it, that much nicer to fight people that are still stuck flying Munins and Eagles, and I just think Cerberuses are gross. I feel like that's going to be the flavor of the week in a couple of months or a month from now when these changes kick out and people finally get their doctrine switched over. I kind of expect to see Cerberuses flying around everywhere, and I just think they're garbage.
Well, one of the things I keep hearing is it seems like these changes were aimed at reducing the power of Logi potentially, as now they've got far less time to respond, seeing as
for subcasts, yeah. Because even with I do think that's true because of the fact change they implemented too. They basically took away subcap facts. Think of it, one cap booster on a subcap facts. No way. Like
I think CCP has come out and just decided that they want more things to blow up. They want more ships to explode, and when you nerf across the board, you're not changing maybe the outcome of two doctrines fighting, but more things are likely to die. So with the current state of things, you run into it a lot with the size of gangs, maybe that I fight in, maybe not when you get up into these huge colo fights when there's like 200 things. But if you're fighting sub 60 man fleets, for example, with the right Logi ratio to DPS ships, you can very easily get into these stalemated fights because Logi is just so damn powerful. And when you see the meta in EVE like it is now, where T2 ships are so prevalent, or the T3 cruisers with these real high resist that can tank forever. If you look at like Loki's, those things can just tank for days. Making it where more things blow up is going to be kind of it's interesting. It's good for the game. It's healthy. It's good for. Gives the miners and the crabs something to do, something to work for, makes their work more valuable, and it just makes more interesting gameplay all around. People talk about the fights that happen in EVE, they post the battle reports, so when more money is flowing out and more things are blowing up and more bloody fights happen, I think that's healthy for the game in general.
Yeah, I mean, Sita, we had a couple of stalemated engagements, our Sax versus your Zealots, right? We had like two engagements in one night where we were like couldn't break each other. So do you think any of this changes that from happening at all, or?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. So I did the math with the new pipe. The one BSU SAC has like 90. So here's the thing. Actually, shouldn't. Yeah, fuck it. I'll say it. Whatever. The one thing they didn't nerf for resist is resist rigs. So if you use your lows to add your buffer and then your rigs to add your resist, maybe a 1 or 2 rigs in the lows, the SAC fit I had post patch was like 103k EHP. That thing's never going to die with an ADC. Like as long as Logi's there, like it's still never going to die unless you're like get alpha. So like I think my Zealots came out to like 84k EHP or something like that. I don't remember, but I think you're going to see a shift to resist rigs being used actually, and then the lows will give you your buffer you need. But I do think for T1, I think hacks, the Munin sucks now. It has like no EHP because the resist already low enough. It's got like 60, 50 something. I mean, it'll still be used, but it's just not the effective one. I do think Contra's right, though. You'll see a shift towards armor ships, at least for sub 100 stuff. You're still going to see shield ships used for big block warfare because of the front-loaded reps. But I do think stuff's going to load or get killed quicker. Yeah, I do think that. I do love. At first I was worried about the resist changes for subcaps, but the more I look at it, the more I like it. But it definitely is. I'm very happy. I was at first I wanted the resist changes just to be on caps and supers, but on subcaps I'm fine with too. I do think though that having actual good Logi pilots is and good pilots is just going to matter more now, because you got to have people who broadcast on time, ADC. Like maybe it took you 4 seconds to die now. Maybe now it's going to take you like 2. You just got to be on point.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that CCP has been constantly doing over the past few patches is trying to give love to battleships, right? So they gave battleships in this upcoming patch a little buff to their base HP and some scan res. Do you think this is putting battleships into the new meta? Like we'll move away from hacks and into Macarials online again, or maybe
I think you're going to see Max online again. Personally.
Yeah. Is there any hope for a T1 or faction battleship doctrine?
Maybe Megas come back, but I think everyone's just going to go Artie for the alpha. I think you're going to see either. See, Armor Max don't have the E-War. I think what you're going to see is Max online again or Maelstrom's online. If they go Armor Max, I don't know if they will or not because of the E-War. If it was me, I fell in love with armored auctions over the past 3 months being in Recking Crew, so I'd go Armor Max, but I think you're going to see Shield Max come back. I think that's just how it's going to be, because they'll now be able to track Munins. If you have enough paints, you can track any other A-hack in the game. Like, I think you'll probably see Rogues come back, maybe, I don't know. I do think it's going to be Battleship Online. Give it 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, I mean, even the reduction in bomb damage seems to favor their battleship doctrine again, right?
They want it to be. I can't tell if they want it to be like long range battleship engagements or just warp at 0 with blasters and go to town, which I think they do want it to be the blaster one, which is why they gave that nerf. But is it enough nerf to matter? Don't think so. Or not
or
nerf.
Buff to void ammo, right?
Because like realistically in a fleet fight situation, you want to be able to shoot like out to 150 versus like have 40k max range with blasters. Like that's just dumb, especially in nullsec.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask: do you reckon the buff to short range ammo is actually going to change the way people fly fleets? Because I know traditionally you're not necessarily in brawling range all the time.
You're going to see a lot of Tech 2 suicide dreads now. The Tech 2 nerf to suicide dreads, oh my god. Like, they do an insane amount of DPS now with short range ammo.
Like the Moros short range you're talking ammo about? Like,
well, not just the Moros, like the RD-Nag Tech 2 fit and the Rev Tech 2 for like short range guns.
An important clarification. I've heard from the CSM that the short range damage buff does not apply to extra.
To what?
Extra large ammo. That's right.
So it doesn't apply to dreads.
Never mind. I take that back.
That's right.
So you'll still see Tech 1 dread bombs. But
what's set out on this one, I think the Armor Max is going to go back to being king, which I think is kind of boring. I think we've been there, done that. Eve's been through that cycle already. I would kind of like, as much as I love the ship, and I already think it can track hacks in its current form. An Armor Max
can. It depends on how you use it. Yeah.
I mean, we used them for years. They're awesome, but the hack was just too cheap and mobile, so people kind of moved away from that. But if they give it this buff and it goes back to battleships, then it's just going to be armor. It's going to be Macarials again.
So I think what's going to end up happening is everyone's going to use A-hacks for now. But if a war kicks off, people are going to start using battleships. But that's the thing. I don't know if you want to use battleships in a scenario where you have, like, if you're going to be fighting hostile supers and titans, because then they can just titans can track you with long range guns, and then supers now have 4 heavy fighters, so they'll apply to battleships fine. Like, it's. I would say you're going to see it, and you're going to see battleships used in fights where there won't be super caps. But if there's going to be super caps, I think you're still going to see A-hacks. I think,
which is interesting because CCP has mentioned in their dev blogs that the the supercarrier change is only the first to come in a bunch of changes for them. Like, they want them to not be able to engage subcaps at all and be like the end all be all capital killer. I don't know how you accomplish that though.
Still like apply to battleships, and I can make my avatar track your fucking Macario with 2 paints and 2 tracking computers. Like,
hey, look, I had a Cinnable get erased the other day by a Titan with regular guns. So
if you remember, like the first frat war, LK1K, when like everyone was deployed down south, I think we flew Rogues or Maelstroms, and like all the Pan Fam, Tri, and Frat Supers or Titans refit like long range guns, because we were sitting like 200 off the fort. They refit long range guns, 2 tracking computers, and a paint. And like they split up into groups of 4, and each one would just alpha a rogue. Like each group of 4 was just alpha and rogues, and we just couldn't keep up the pace. Like, unless they fix tracking Titans, I don't think you're going to see battleships. I don't think you're going to see battleships either unless someone goes to a war. Like, everyone's so spaced out right now in terms of blocks. Like Pan Fam's not going to be. Like, Pan Fam's not going to take 40 fucking or like 400 battleships like across 3 regions. They'll take AX. Like, they're faster. Unless someone goes to war and deploys like next door to another big block, I don't think you see battleships.
right, so like both of you talk to me about what the future looks like for SIG level play, right? You mentioned Mecha SIG and DKS SIG or PvP groups that even Recking crew on their own, and like we're talking like 60 down man fleets. How does this change the way you two are thinking about fleet comps, other than you think armor is going to be dominant? But is there anything that, and the fax change really help at all? Like, I was thinking maybe, dropping a fax in a 60-man engagement is probably GG if you don't have an answer for it. Can you now possibly kill a fax and continue with the fight?
No, like Contrago, I've been talking too much, I feel like.
Yeah, I think the fax changes are good. I know people get real caught up on what's comfortable and what they know, and faxes, I think in their current form are way too powerful. A bling fit fax, can almost live with as long as it doesn't run out of charges, even if you can bring in extra charges against subcap fleets that are way too big for what it should be holding up against. I think it makes it a lot more interesting. It all changes depending on the level of gameplay you're at. We're currently fighting in typically 60 man and down size fleets on our normal fleets, our content fleets, and in that size the faxes are just a little bit overpowered the way they are currently. So yeah, I like to see anything made easier to blow up. I think even if it's my stuff blowing up, I think as a PvP group, the goal is to go out and make things blow up on both sides, and anything that stops a fight from happening or stalemates it or ends it right then and there, I think is kind of boring. I'd much rather duke it out with somebody and we're trading ships back and forth than someone edges out, based on skill or based on, doctrine or whatever that is, but both sides sustain losses. One side comes out victorious. I think that's more interesting, and I think the people that are playing have more fun doing that than, just sitting there stalemated forever, nothing dies, or I dropped a fax, now you can't break anything, so you just left. I mean, that's not that's not real engaging combat. So anything they do to make changes to make that fights kind of keep going, that's good in my opinion.
What do you think, Sid? Anything change from your outlook as far as what you guys want to do with fleet comps?
I agree with Contra. I do think, though, if you get anything above 60, like 100, here's the thing, though. Fax, if someone drops a subcap fax, then, like, you need enough DPS to kill it. And while you're killing it, you're probably going to start bleeding, like, your own ship. So, like, maybe subcap fax are killable now, but is it worth it to try to sit there and break it while you lose enough ships and hope that once you lose enough ships, or once you kill it, you haven't lost enough ships to where you can still kill stuff? Like, I think so. Like, if it's 100 people versus 40 people with a subcap fax, I think this definitely changes the meta there. But, like, all in all, I still think subcap packs are too powerful in my opinion. I do like the cap booster change. I was worried when I saw that it applied to everything. I do think though, if you can have the ability to drop 2 to 3 dreads now on a subcap fax, though that fax is probably dead. I like the change. Do I think it's enough? No.
Well, they've slightly gone back on the cap booster thing. In a sort of follow up today, they announced that the cap booster limitation will only apply to faxes.
Yeah, I was worried about that limitation being applied to Haw Dreads, and I was like, rip the Haw Dreads. Ignore my dogs.
Yeah, no problem.
The Haw Dreads needed the cap booster still. Dreads in general, you drop them, they die. They're sieged up. Dreads just die. So they need that. They're not these unkillable kind of machines, really. But and it's like I said, even in the 100 to 60 man, I think before the way things are now, if you're in a 12-man gang and you've got a 40-man gang that's coming around, with the right ship combination, you can drop a single fax, and now you've edged the fight where they can't break you anymore. That's just too powerful. So if they make it where the fax is at least assaultable, if you've got a number edge on them or an advantage based on your comp, or you're winning the fight, you may actually still be able to kill the fax and take the fleet out. And it's just more anything, like I said, any kind of changes that the CCP pushes to make more things explode is just going to overall help the game. They need to keep pushing those kind of things. Make it where everybody's not running around in these unkillable ships is good.
I don't know how they do that without just making fax not able to lock subcaps. Like, that's the thing. Like, if you nerf the fax so hard, then to a point where it can't really help subcaps, then it definitely can't help super carriers. So
you could just give it sig radius. Probably the simplest solution, surely.
You mean reps based on sig radius? Like, so it won't rep as hard on a frigate as it would a carrier? Like
exactly. So they are some use, but they essentially miss, I suppose you could say, on the smaller targets.
Oh yeah, by the way, TQ hit 40,000 players today.
I mean, it's the other thing. Like, everyone's at home because of COVID-19, unfortunately. I think. You think that's what's leading to the spike, or are there good things happening and even people are liking it, or maybe a little both?
COVID, I think, but I think CCP needs to capitalize on the moment while everyone's here and release changes that pull people back into the game. If they do that, then the game's going to see a spike after COVID.
Is any of this coming next week a step in the right direction for you? Like, I know that's more is needed, and CCP seems to be more iterative on their changes. So, is this moving in the right direction for both of you?
I think fleet-wise, yes. But I think my big worry is that people are going to struggle to make money. Like, the mining's nerfed hard. Like, mining's nerfed hard, and I agree it needed a nerf. As hard as it was, no, and I get that they're doing like their phases, and I get that, but you need to be quick on it, especially if you want to retain people, because for people to want to stay and to be able to stay, they need to make money. And with the resist changes, I don't know. I don't crab anymore. So I don't know if that's going to affect ratting. Like, super carriers, I mean, 4 fighters, 4 heavies instead of I don't know how that's going to affect super ratting, especially with the 50% explosion radius. I'm worried that people aren't going to make money, and people won't want to play because they're struggling to get money for doctrine ships or for Plex. Like, that's my worry with these changes. That's one worry with these changes, especially if you're trying to retain people after COVID. Like, that's one of my issues.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of did the math on the super. I think they're going to be fine ratting still for now. But yeah, we're already starting to feel inside FEDUP complaints about the mining income. It's gone, really, other than moon mining.
I think CCP should have.
What was that, Edmund?
I was saying moon mining is gotten hit by a large spiky baseball bat last week as well.
It has, but like for groups like us, it didn't really change much. In fact, it kind of makes the moon mining, the T2 material itself, a little better. In fact, but the mining of ore has really just been batted out of the game, at least from nullsec.
I agree with the changes that they're making to mining and money making in Eve on the premise that there's too much ISK in the game. What I'm kind of worried and scared for, we talk about Eve Online, and we talk about all the combat and the fighting, and a lot of us forget that the majority of players don't participate in that activity. And I wish that CCP would have learned something from their Blackout experience. And even though I don't agree with the way that they're moving, or the changes that they're making and why they're doing it, the drastic, I'm just going to delete all the ore from the game and make all the miners I think they should have learned something from subscription numbers in Blackout. When you make ridiculous changes like that completely kill a gameplay for a whole, what we should be honest with ourselves is a majority subset of the game, you really risk losing a bunch of those players. And maybe those are guys that sometimes PvP or sometimes do other activities in the game. Maybe they're 80% miners or 90% miners. But like exactly what we had happen with Blackout is gonna happen with mining changes now, because we've just gone and said, okay, we're just gonna delete all this ore. So crabs everywhere are freaking out, and they could have done a little bit better to do this in a little bit smoother, more drastic way than to just kill them all at once kind of thing.
I get why they're doing it, and I get the phases, and I get why they want to do it that way. It's just that they can't take too long to do it, because if they take too long and people aren't making money off mining, or mining still isn't worth it, and people will either look for other ways to make money. And as far as I know, there's very few good ways to make money nowadays, especially with how nerfed everything is. But like, people will either look for other ways to make money or just quit because of that. And I worry the latter, because knowing CCP and their timelines, they usually extend them way more than they should be, or double them. If I knew they were going to do it like a month and a half, 2 months from now, be like, hey, we know how much ore we want to have in these anoms. We're going to try this number and see how it goes for 2 months. I'd be like, yeah, you know what? That's perfect. Hold on, guys. Just wait 2 months. But they've been vague. They haven't said anything besides, we're going to do this at some point. Just stay tuned.
And I was flying around in Blackout, thinking this is the life. I loved it. For me personally, as a strictly PvP, I loved Blackout. I thought it was great. And I'm like, this is no big deal. I still had good PvP numbers. What I didn't realize was how many of my crabs just stopped playing the game. And it wasn't evident until Blackout ended and I saw all these people log back on, and I was like, well, that's amazing. There really is this group of people that just quit playing the game. They didn't try to diversify. They didn't try to, do the things that we kind of suggested to be safe. They just said, I can't play the game anymore the way I enjoy playing the game, and they just quit.
I remember you guys took a bad hit from it.
We actually did okay.
Yeah, we actually did, considering comparatively speaking, okay. But yeah, it did hurt.
You were one of the Legacy Alliances who adapted the best, but your guys' moon mining ops, like, you guys are already structured very well, and like saving your works. Like, you guys lose the least amount of anyone, I think. You guys were always good about protecting yourselves while doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we try, and as a group, and it's a good point as leaders. Contra and I sort of lead FEDUP. Not sort of, we do lead FEDUP, but when things like this happen, we have to try and help our guys adapt. And Blackout really made us stronger because we figured out how to protect each other and try and do things the best we can. Obviously, we're going to lose Rorik's loss or part of the game, but being organized and ready will be helpful. Knowing that Sedal's alt is next door, locked off, helps.
Yeah.
But so we're trying to do the same thing now with mining, which is sort of the equivalent to Blackout, really. You just strip the entire gameplay out of the game, so they can't play like they were. So we have to figure out ways to get them over that hump, and some will come along, a lot won't, though.
And I know they can't really give us a timetable, because if they gave us a timetable, then it sort of skews the numbers. I think you're going to see a lot of people not log in or not be able to make money or just outright quit because they can't mine and do the things they enjoy, like mining and production. Because I know a fair bit of people who enjoy doing that. They can't do it now, or maybe not to the scale they would, or maybe not to a scale that would be successful. And I think it's just going to hurt the game unless they are able to redistribute this stuff in 2 months.
Yeah, we had Dawn on from the Imperium last week or the week before, and she was saying the same. Another side effect is people who are now just trained into their Oracle have nothing to mine, so that's demoralizing too, right?
I do like I think there needs to be a balance in using, like, okay, if I use the Rourke, here's its bonuses and its negatives, but like if I use the Hulk, here's its bonuses and its negative. I think there needs to be a balance between the two to where both are susceptible. Just one is better than the other. Not one's better than the other, but one's more susceptible because, they both had their ups and downs. Like previously it was just the Rourke. If you're going to mine, get a Rourke. If you're going to mine, get a Rourke. Like that's just how it was. There needs to be a balance between the two. And I get CCP wants the game to go on. It's just I don't get the changes because I feel like it's driving people away right now, especially with everyone logged on.
Well, it's not going to get any better, I don't think, in the terms of money making potential. I think they've, at least in some of the recent interviews, they've sort of made it clear that while the next few phases will probably include some kind of slight reintroduction of money making, it's going to be not even close to the previous heights.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If you made it to where ships blow up easier, but people can't make money to replace those ships. What happens when they run out of money? They can't buy a ship to blow up, and they don't play. Like, I love the changes in terms of resist and the ships because now Super and Titan fights are a lot more riskier in terms of like Titans can now get DD volleyed by like 30 other Titans. Like Titan fights are a lot riskier now because of the less tank. And I love that because a lot more stuff is going to be blowing up. But replacing that stuff to have constant content, constant reasons to log on versus, oh, I have to log on so I can crab so that next week I can go fly on this fleet. Like, there needs to be a good way to make money for people to replace ships, or ships need to not die as often. And I think they want ships to die more often, but you got to be able to replace them as well. If you can't replace them, then what's the point in even risking taking a fight you think you might lose?
A lot of this is going to come down to alliance and coalition levels, supporting people, trying to get them over the hump.
Yeah, and like Recking Crew leaves a lot of we leave a lot of ISK buying and ships. Like DPS ships aren't even SRP'd. Everything else is, but DPS I think they get like 25%. Like, it requires the line member to at least have some money, and you can't just. And even then, like, test as the TTT, you can only live on that money so long if none of your members are crabbing and they're just using SRP money again and again to buy ships because they don't want to spend the 5 hours it would take now to get, I don't know, what, $1 billion? I don't know. I'm just throwing some random numbers out. That's probably terribly wrong, but.
Well, I think the good news is that scarcity means more effort to go get stuff, but I think that people's time put in, again, I was talking at the beginning of the show about the amount of time you put in often yields reward. Like, take the case of FEDUP alone, right? We tap maybe 30% of our space as far as belts, anoms, and moons. If I encourage people to just move around a little bit, yes, their ISK per hour will go down in the short term, but as prices for these things rise and they have to move around and just like locust the rest of our space, that could be an answer. It's just getting people over the hump. Like, oh my God, I have to like move around. Like,
it's a change, and I don't think it's gonna. How do I phrase this? It's a change that people will adapt to. I just worry that people are gonna knee-jerk react and then immediately quit, and then just be like, you know what? Right now, I can't make any money mining, and since I can't make any money mining, I can't buy ships to go on fleets. I think these changes are amazing. I just worry they nerfed ISK making too hard too soon. Especially, I don't think you can do ISK making nerf and ships blowing up more often nerf or buff. because then like no one's going to make money for a while until the markets adjust.
Yeah, it's like impacting people on both sides, right? I'm
Yeah, exactly.
losing my investments more rapidly, and I can't replace it. Yeah.
Once the markets change and like the prices go up more, mining will come back on the table. It'll be different, but it'll come back on the table. But like, it's just, I don't know. It's a worry of mine that people will either knee jerk or just not even play anymore because they can't afford to replace their ships without having to crab for 4 or 5 hours. And who wants to do that? Like, I get there are some people, but like I know a lot of guys who hate crabbing in the first place and just don't want to do it. They only do it because they need the money to buy the ships to shoot stuff.
I think a lot of it is the type of gameplay that mining represented before. I think a lot of it is you took away what was almost completely passive income generation. It was for the people that played in off time zones when their alliances weren't running fleet, when they don't have, good protection. It was the guys that log in early in the morning and just mine quietly away, watch Netflix, or the guys that do it in a small group and just sit there and talk with their buddies for hours on end. If you make it where they always have to move around, you kill a type of gameplay that they enjoy doing. And it may not be my type of gameplay, but it is a type of gameplay that they enjoy doing. And it is, for better or worse, gone from the game.
I don't know. We'll see. I think I guess since I'm in a smaller group now and don't have a lot of money in my back pocket, like a lot of money in my back pocket, I guess I worry about like people in my group not being able to replace ships because RC flies very expensive ships. If you were to buy one DPS ship in every one of our doctrines, you spend about 4 to 5 billion in it. So, it's not something everyone can just cough up.
Yeah, and conceivably that cost should rise over the next couple of weeks, months, right?
Yeah, and I guess no blocks, they'll find a way to continue to make sure their members have ships. I guess I'm worried about smaller groups. That's maybe just me. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but this is just my opinion.
No, I think you're right. We have gone a little bit over, but I do appreciate you guys coming on. Any closing comments on the topics we've covered, or something else you wanted to talk about before we close up the show?
Bring back combat refits on capitals, not super capitals on capitals.
Okay. Interesting.
Do you think the Deimos is going to get some usage now, or is that just sort of a morale bug?
I'll tell you what, I'll chip in there. I don't buy the whole brawl meta is ever going to be a thing. It's just the engagement window is not wide enough for you to be relying on a brawl short range comp. But let the two FCs answer that question too. Deimos, anyone?
No, it's going to be all about the Navy Mega. Blaster Navy Megas till the cows come home, baby.
Navy
Contra does love his Navy Mega.
Demos weren't buff enough to be a fleet doctrine. You'll see it used in solo, but not fleet stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, do you guys buy the whole brawl thing? You're like, all joking aside, are people going to really be brawling it out? No, right?
No.
Low spec and like maybe RC and probably will, but big null blocks, no. They say.
All right. Well, I don't have a whole lot of news to cover. We did cover a lot of the news, given that next week we get all of these changes that are pretty severely impacting. Edmund, you got any news you wanted to cover?
There's nothing huge, excluding obviously the absolutely massive update. I think it's generally quiet. We've got Flex for Good is back. That's been been a bit controversial, actually, that one.
Yeah, because the proceeds go to WHO, right? And you can
exactly.
You can have your own opinions about how WHO handled COVID or did not handle COVID. Don't want to get too far into that, but yes, Flex for Good is running on for that.
And Serenity's back any day now, apparently. Thanks, Ron.
Yeah, so yes, that's right. Chinese server back. And hey, Ron,
although from
miss you, buddy.
Talking to Fulcrum and to Norris, none of them plan to go back as of right now. There will be new groups that spawn off of it, I think. New Chinese people getting into the game.
I think
but as far as I understand, the ones here are going to
Do you think when I heard that they were going to go back to like a snapshot as it was when it shut down, I was kind of like, really? Like, don't you think they should just big bang it and bring back the whole thing like fresh and like re-advertise it and I mean, no? Like, I don't think it's going to be healthy to like.
No, it's no. That's one reason Fulcrum said they won't go back. Plus, Fulcrum's not going to leave till Frat's dead. That was his exact words. Mangos is not leaving until Frat is dead.
Bold statement.
But yeah, I don't think. I think a fresh wipe would have been great for them. I think it would have drawn a lot more players. I think Serenity over there is just going to be a bust. Personally,
yeah, I think it's a huge mistake to just bring it back online the way it was, completely dominated by one group. Like, come on, man.
I think
that they're just going to stay here, and everyone's going to migrate here because the news will go out that hey, Serenity's back, and then they'll go on to Serenity, and then there's going to be people on Serenity. Hey, come play with us on TQ. It's much better over here.
The way EVE players are, it doesn't matter if, I've often thought about that whole server wipe thing, but the way that EVE players are, it would absolutely matter 0% if you wiped our EVE server today, because you're going to have the goons and the test guys and the NC, the power block, the PanFam, all those groups are going to go right back into their groups immediately, and they're going to go claim their own little sections over there, and they're going to far outpace and just murder everybody anyways. It's going to be the same exact thing. If you did it on the Chinese server, it'd be that same group that dominated before would be reformed into the same alliance tomorrow, and they would be squashing everybody the same, just in smaller ships for a couple of months.
I don't know. I think it could shake things up. Like if I was NC or if I was PanFam, like in the server reset, I'd fight over Delve. Like I would. I'd fight over.
Yeah, right. You don't have like 50 billion keep stars to hold you back now.
Yeah, players will stay in the same groups, but I think that locations, and there will be a lot more fights. But locations of people pick where they want to stay.
It seems like the new China publisher is fixing to promote the ever-living hell out of the game. So it could be quite interesting if they just have a monstrous influx of new players because they push the game really hard.
But then I feel like those players will just come at TQ, to be quite honest. Like they're just going to recruit them on the TQ.
Like, FEDUP on the game. FEDUP on the Chinese server in 2021.
Yeah. The game's dead on Serenity. We already own a whole of the map. Come over here and help us evict the guys on TQ. It's much more fun over here. Like that's what will end up happening in my eyes.
Yeah, maybe. I just think it would have been better marketing wise to start fresh and be like new game, new life, Even if history repeated itself, at least it would get more people interested at first. Anyway, I think that's about it. We like to close the show with a little segment that we like, and I know Contra's cringing right now, but a little segment we like to call Something You May Not Know About EVE Online, where we ask the panel and our guests to tell our viewers something they may not know. It may be mechanic-wise, lore-wise, a story they may not have known, anything like that. I'm going to start with you, Edmund. You got anything this week?
I can tell you about a well-known mechanic, but no one knows how to use it, in how you share a blueprint library with your courtmates without them letting them. It's a bit of a dull one, shall we say, but it took me literally years to find out how to do it because there's no documentation on it. So it's a short one. You need to give somebody both the container access but not container take permissions, and you need to give them industry job permissions. And by doing that, you can create a container in a hangar, and then you put your blueprints in the hangar, and now you can share your blueprint originals with all your friends without them stealing it.
Yeah, I like that one.
A little known lost mechanic that no one seems to want to share.
How about you, Sedao, in your wealth of knowledge banks? Anything in there that EVE players may not know?
That they may not know. See, here's the thing. I know everything because I'm just the best. So, like,
yeah.
I'm kidding. Things people may not know. Let's see. Well, this one's probably common. Cytoinhibs can't. I had to teach someone this weekend when we were whaling. Actually, cytoinhibs have to be dropped 100 from a structure or a gate. They can't be dropped at 0 on the gate. I had to teach someone that this weekend, but I guess that's something people may not know. I don't know how many people drop cytoinhibs. I drop them a lot. So.
Really? I didn't notice.
Yeah, man.
All right, Concha. What do you got for me, buddy?
Pass.
Negative.
Damn it. If Carol Baskin played EVE Online, she would only fly the Caracal. Also, she for certain killed her husband.
I have no idea who that is. Is that
What? Oh my god.
Europe or something?
You gotta go. Just Google Carol Baskin and then dive in. Just dive in. Go all the way down the hole. You'll binge watch. You're not sleeping tonight. I'll tell you that much. I don't know. It's like 2 a.m. where you are. Get ready for.
33 at this point.
get ready for that.
And I'm with your boy over here. The corp management, as far as allowing access and taking away access, is about the most AIDS thing in EVE Online.
Redo the
stripping people of all of that stuff is so. I don't know who designed it, but it's terrible and horrible to use.
It's probably designed, 15 years ago. But yeah, corp management, UI, and permissions and stuff. Needs to keep coming along. I know Carker probably does a pretty good job of doing the little things, but we need to go the way of access lists and not stupid little checkboxes. Yeah, I kind of agree.
It's just an ancient system that hasn't been updated.
As a new CEO, God, it is cancer.
Yeah, to try and figure out how to set all that stuff up without like people taking all your crap. Yeah, it's really hard.
Well, yeah, the big trick with it is there's very little documentation on how to do it properly. There's like a very general, there's tick boxes and they do things. Okay, but what do they do? Why do they do it?
Well, and it gets worse now with upwell structures, because upwell structures are mostly guided by access lists. So who could put up a structure is based on corporate tick boxes, but who can gun the structure is access list, which is a totally different interface. So it gets even more confusing, right? And I guess that will be my my thing for what you may not know. If you're trying to set up ability for people to drop structures, that's corporate roles. People to manage structures, putting in upwell structures in particular, putting on modules, gunning it, fueling it, all those sorts of things are access list based. So it's like, it's very confusing, but yeah, you got those two different systems there. But I appreciate both you, Sedo and Contra, for coming on the show and talking about changes upcoming and your two groups. It was very informative to me. And as always, Edmund, thank you for joining us on the panel today.
Sorry for ranting at point. I don't know. I get to talking and I don't stop.
Hey, no, that's why it's called talking in stations, right? Anyway,
That's part of the show, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. That's what we like to do here. But that'll do it for this week, midweek show. Make sure you catch us on Discord. Jump in the public channel, watch shows. Take a look at Matterall's daily show, covering all the news you may need to know that's dropping at the moment. Our Sunday show. We have a Monday show, right, Edmund? Is the Wormhole show back on?
Sunday show. I don't know about the Monday one, to be honest.
And thank you to all our Patreons, and check that out. That'll do it for us this week, and I will see you next week in Talking Stations.